I've been waiting to get all the information about what's going on in Cuba before making a video about it, and I'm finally ready to make a video discussing the current situation in Cuba and giving my analysis. First off, this American rhetoric that Cuba is some sort of dictatorship and some sort of one-party state where nobody gets a say is absurd. Cuba has one of the most democratic forms of government that this world has ever seen.
Here's some things you should probably know about Cuba. Cuba is a single-party dictatorship, which means they've been cracking down on the protests in pretty violent and terrible ways. And it's important to note that some of the people out there protesting are protesting the socialist government itself, while others are merely protesting the lack of access to vaccines and increasing food insecurity among Cubans.
I think any Cuban citizen is well just enough to protest any repressive decision-making that goes on within their government.
When he came to power, Fidel Castro had the opportunity to actually bring democracy to Cuba, but that was never his intention. He purged his enemies, he outlawed other political parties, he threw a lot of gay people in jail. And the democratic revolution that the Cuban people had been hoping for ever since Jose Marti just never came. Instead, the Castro family basically spent the next 60 years locking up protesters and dissenters and journalists and anybody who disagreed with the government. The CIA tried to assassinate Fidel Castro over 600 times. It tried to forcibly bring about regime change during the Bay of Pigs invasion. It also engaged in a variety of attempts to sabotage the Cuban economy. Everything from the humorous, like working with the German ball bearing company to change the size and shapes of ball bearings being shipped to Cuba so they would no longer work. But occasionally they were more violent, like turning a blind eye to terrorist attacks on the part of right-wing Cuban exile groups in Miami. These groups often acted at the behest or with the sanction of the CIA and the State Department.
Also, we cannot be dogmatic and call every protester in Cuba a CIA agent. There are people in Cuba who see it as a basic freedom to participate in a market economy and open up a business. If you follow me, you'll understand why I disagree with this take, but nonetheless, we cannot be calling these protesters CIA agents. The left should be able to recognize these opinions and operate with them on the discursive level. So, Cuba's government become less repressive. I hope it's implied here, no American imperialist involvement, no neo-colonialism, and no corporate control over the Cuban working class. A leftist can and should be against the Cuban state taking more repressive measures against their citizens in recent years, while also being against American imperialism and capitalist control over the Cuban working class.
The Cuban people deserve a democracy. They deserve multi-party elections. But given the history of cynical U.S. involvement in the island, we should be very wary of what form that takes.